Dolphins. Today is Thursday, June 16th, 2022. It's Power to the Pod. Your questions, your topics, your hot takes, you name it. Today on the show, we're digging into anything and everything that's on your minds.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Dolphins fans? Kyle Krabs, your host here on Locked On Dolphins. Lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, director of scouting of the draftnetwork.com. Your host here on Locked On Dolphins. Today is Thursday, June 16, 2022. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Dolphins your first Miami Dolphins listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. Locked On Dolphins listeners get $50 off purchases or $500 or more when using code Locked On. We are locked on to all the things that are on your minds here today on the show. It is Power to the Pod. It's our mailbag episode every week. We dig through all the things that are most pressing to those of you who leave questions, who tweet at me, who send me DMs, who send me emails, who leave reviews of the show. I had one person send me a text one time. We kindly ask you don't. But hey, I admire the hustle and the passion for the Dolphins. So I'm not mad about it. I'm just saying. Easier ways for me to read your questions. So let's start today by diving right in. We have several podcast review questions that we'll start with first. Some DMs, some tweets. And we'll see where else the day takes us from there. The first question comes from a non-flattering username, and he's joked about it now because this is a repeat question here. Stephen Ross and a wish for what Stephen Ross should do with the Dolphins. From Australia, 5-star review, potential free agent additions. Kyle, apologies for the name. I know you don't like saying it, but I can't figure out how to change it. Fair enough, touche. This might be a whole segment you do later in the offseason, but what potential players might not make other teams' 53-man rosters that you would like to add? This is absolutely August content in a deep dive sense. But I can start to point out some position groups that I'd very much be interested in picking over the cuts. And the objective with your cuts, right? You're either rolling the dice on a young player who was the victim of too many talented players in front of him and betting that player is going to become something he has not been to this point. Or alternatively, you're targeting older players who were cap casualties and are probably closer to the tail end of their careers, hoping you can bring them in to serve as lesser roles than what the team who had them was going to have in store for them. And obviously, you're getting them at a financial discount because you are waiting for them to be released from their current contracts. So with Miami's current chapter, right, of approaching building a team, I think you should probably get more of the latter than the former, but you can certainly find room for both. I think the position groups to watch would include offensive tackle, possibly center. I do think if Michael Dieter's not going to be the starter and Connor Williams is going to be the starter, I think you're probably good at center with Dieter and Connor Williams as possibilities. Right tackle is certainly a spot I would be keeping an eye out for. Maybe running back, although I don't know that they carry that many. I think they have a numbers. There will be teams that are eager to pluck over the Dolphins' leftovers at tight end and running back. I can tell you that after our cuts are done. And then defensively, I'd probably point to outside corner and linebacker as two position groups. And you can never have enough pass rush, but I do think outside corner, the depth there with proven veteran talent, you could probably benefit for some more of that. And then at linebacker, just an opportunity to add somebody who might be able to play a significant amount of snaps for you if you needed him to. Those would be the position groups that I would shout out, but I'm going to wait Stephen Ross until closer to the actual cut down date at the end of August to kind of get into who some of those names might be. Tim Trebo with a review and a question. Free agent inside backer. Love the pod. Love your insight. You mentioned A.J. Johnson as a linebacker you thought would be a good fit in Miami. With Porter Gustin signed, Reuben Foster having been brought by, and Johnson still out there, who is the one linebacker in free agency you would advocate for the Dolphins to sign? One of these guys or others? Geez. Okay, so I can only get one of them. Porter Gustin really doesn't move the edge for me as far as the inside backers are concerned. So I still think you do have a wide open opportunity there to bring somebody in. Here's what I know. Reuben Foster, if he's healthy, is the best backer of the bunch. But we have not seen a healthy Reuben Foster in a long time. And if we're going to follow the same ideology as the last question that we tackled, which was, what are you looking for in waiver claims? Free agent addition should be the same thing. And I think a player who's probably a little bit more ready to contribute would be the path that I would advocate for, which would make Alexander Johnson or AJ Johnson probably the name that I think is the most appropriate to suggest the Dolphins would benefit from signing. I would love a flyer on Reuben Foster, man. He was electric coming out of Alabama. He was a tremendous talent. And I think it's a shame we have not seen him live up to that potential. You want to give him a chance to do it in Miami, I'm all ears. Like, let's make that happen too. You think about Channing Tindall. Reuben Foster was Channing Tindall with instincts coming out of Alabama way back when. Our next question comes from, I'm not even going to try to figure out what this is code for. As wet, no, a whole bunch of letters in the alphabet. Left a review on the 10th. Question. There's a little bit of a lean in. Kyle, been a listener for a while. Love every opportunity to learn about the Dolphins and how pro football works. First listen was you doing a draft breakdown of Odafe Owe from Penn State before the 21 draft. Was blown away at the technique discussed in playing the position more than, oh, he's fast, he's a good player. Well, thank you. I say this often when I get this kind of feedback, but that's the best kind of compliment that you could provide me. So I genuinely appreciate that. As Wet's question pertains to Tua, so many comparisons have been made between the Dolphins and 49ers lately for obvious reasons, and therefore many comparisons have been made between Tua and Jimmy G. Despite the success Jimmy G has had, San Francisco still traded up for his potential replacement. What does Tua need to do this season to ensure Miami does not draft his replacement? Or do you think his limited physical traits will eventually lead to his demise as a starter in Miami? Thanks, and keep up the awesome work. Okay, Tua question. It's a Tua question. Let me brace myself here. Here's what I'll say. I think you can look at Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams. And I think you can look at Kyle Shanahan, the San Francisco 49ers, right? They're from the same coaching tree. Both of those teams hit a certain glass ceiling before deciding they were up against the glass ceiling. Miami is nowhere close to that proverbial glass ceiling that those teams hit. San Francisco, you went to a Super Bowl and blew a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter because Jimmy Garoppolo could not get you a first down. The Rams, with Jared Goff, twice led the league in passing yardage, made it to the postseason, and when you had to have it, you couldn't get it. One could probably make the argument, well, Tua and the Dolphins have to have it must-win opportunities against Tennessee and Buffalo late in the season the last 2 years, and they didn't get it. But I think there's room between what the Dolphins' current ceiling has been and what those coaches with those franchises found their glass ceilings to be motivated to go out and make a change. So if the Dolphins this year go 8-9 or 10-7 and somehow magically manage to miss the playoffs again, I don't know that there's obviously part of it depends on how Tua plays in that stretch. But if Tua plays sufficient football, and I think that's an appropriate way to describe a lot of what Jimmy G does, is he's a sufficient quarterback. I would be surprised if Tua became the fall guy, really. Now, if he completely underwhelms, I think it'll be very easy for this decision to be made. But both San Francisco and Los Angeles had several years of expecting to compete for championships and falling short of that expectation because, in large part, of quarterback play before they got to that point. I don't think Miami's close to that point yet. So, for Tua's perspective, just go out, execute, have the leap in play and production that we think you're capable of, and it'll probably be enough to inject some enthusiasm to continue moving forward on the path that they're on, because that's a large reason why they hired this coach, was to build around a young quarterback. So, food for thought, sure. Maybe we get a ring out of it. That'd be swell, wouldn't it? If you're looking for a ring or anything else for the special moment in your life, you're looking for some fine jewelry, but you're having trouble with the shopping process, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone and chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. Locked On Dolphins listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement jewelry. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured. Ships free, arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Our next question. Danny Leon. Believe it's Danny. It's D Leon in the username, but I believe this is Danny. Kyle, Mike McDaniel signals to you in the stands to call one play. It's 4th and goal from the 9, down 4 points, 4 seconds left against the Jets. Playoffs on the line. Okay. Personnel package is Waddle, Hill, Gesicki, Long, 2 at quarterback, and Chase Edmonds in the backfield. What are you calling? What am I calling? Okay, so I want to be able to have answers for as many different kinds of coverage opportunities that we might get as possible, right? It's from the 9-yard line. That's tough. That's a long down and distance to go. What I'm going to have some kind of protection or some kind of check in the event that they blitz you and come hot. That would probably have some kind of perimeter screen. I'm probably going tight bunch to the right. Going to go with a wide receiver on the left. It actually might be Mike Gesicki in this scenario. And I'm going to be in the gun. And I'm going to have a protection that has some kind of quick screen with a slot that kind of converts to a fade to try to get like a high-low, and you can take advantage if they get over-aggressive and try and jump the fade. But that's only in a zero blitz situation. If it's a regular, the Jets with Robert Saleh are going to play a lot of zone, right? They're going to play a lot of cover 3. That's the expectation. In that situation, I'm probably going to call something that has a progression to either side of the field. I'm probably going to run circus to the ISO'd receiver, which is you're going to run a corner route, and then you're going to have the running back run a flat. So you're looking to high-low if you've got a cloud corner and you want to try and slide it inside of that. And then I'm probably out of the tight bunch to the right. I'm probably going to call a concept like a drive, which has a shallow cross and a dig that bends in behind it. The objective there If you can isolate the linebackers in the middle of the field in the zone coverage, you can let the linebacker drive and cut the shallow cross and try to throw the dig in behind it right on the goal line. And if they're going to play super disciplined, probably the third player in that tight bench, I would call something that's probably going to be a short post. So it pushes outside and then comes back and bends back behind and trails that dig route to try to find and vacate and maybe sit down in space. And the circus, that corner route to the 7, which is the 7 routes, the corner route to the ISO receiver side, he's probably going to run a corner stop, which means if they're going to play super soft and the corner is going to sink off in cover 3 in that third of the field, obviously you can't run a straight corner. You'll keep running into that defensive back. So I'll run a corner stop where he gets out of his break and runs his corner route, and then he's going to stop and pivot and potentially work back to the pylon. Kind of run it like a hook. Instead of running to the back pylon, I'm going to have him stop, and you could throw a spot ball if the cloud corner stays flat on the swing route to the left-hand side with Chase Edmonds. You could throw that to the pylon with Gesicki. So just kind of talk through. Obviously, that's I'm glad you gave me a team in the Jets to kind of talk through what you would expect to get from a coverage perspective. They're going to blitz me. I'm going to run. Man, I'd probably like to have a slant route or something like that against a zero pressure situation, or a sluggo, like a quick sluggo or quick fade, instead of putting both Waddle and Hill on the same side of the field and putting Gesicki and asking Gesicki to run that. But And you know what? If they're running zero, it's a safety or a linebacker. I'm probably going to trust Mike to win that matchup anyway. So you'll get a lot more congestion to the side that has Hill and Waddle. So that probably got way more in the weeds than you were planning on. But there's obviously a lot of layers and a lot of considerations that go into a single play call like that. So I don't have that language or lingo readily available for what that would be in this offense. But those are the concepts that I would probably have on front of my mind. Ryan with a question. Kyle, listened to the show for a while. Keep up the great work. Had an interesting offseason show idea I was wondering about. Figured it's longer than Power to Pot question. If you wanted to look back at, say, the last 5 drafts with all of the Dolphins picks in the same draft slots, but rather than following the Dolphins draft board, if they just followed the TDM big board, forget about position need or scheme fit, which players would they have ended up in each pick if they would have just followed the public big boards based on who was available in each pick in the real draft as compared to who they actually picked? This is always a fun exercise, but it's tough to contextualize, right? Because the Dolphins draft board with their scheme needs is different than the Eagles draft board, which is different than the Jets draft board, which is different than the Jaguars draft board based on the schemes that they run and the talent that they have that exists on the roster and the players that they have who are economically worth considering transitioning away from. So, yeah, I mean, I could sit here and tell you arbitrarily who was my 19th best player or my 18th best player in 2020 when they picked Austin Jackson. But I would probably rather look at it and see, okay, here's what the board looks like. And based on my personal rankings and my understanding of the Dolphins, who I would have picked in that spot for them. Thought about doing that for the Tyreek Hill picks as well, which I think would be really interesting. Chad, Miami Dolphins. Kyle, who is your number one breakout candidate for the Dolphins this season? My money is on Jalen Phillips, an impressive rookie season, but I think he takes another leap forward as an elite pass rusher. Man, wouldn't that be swell? Breakout player. I think Brandon Jones is a good candidate on defense. I think offensively, whoever settles in to be the primary ball carrier, probably Chase Edmonds, I think is a good candidate. Of course, there will be people that point to Tua Tagovailoa and say there's an obvious opportunity there if he's healthy. I think those are good candidates. Just like there's good candidates for everybody's taste buds over at Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. These things are high in protein, high in fiber, low in calories, low in sugar. They have 100% chocolate on all of their bars. Right now, you can visit Built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 and save 15% off your next order. That is Built.com, promo code LOCK15 to save 15% off your next order the world's most delicious protein bar. Our next question comes from Darren. Darren sent me a DM. Hearing a lot about Austin Jackson at right tackle, in your opinion, assuming that Connor Williams is in the center role, do you think a camp battle would come down to Liam Eichenberg versus Michael Dieter? If not, I'm interested in who you think has the solid chance to be our left guard. Also, do you think we go after a veteran left tackle as Tehran has a history of missing games throughout the season? Thanks for everything you do. Love your insight. And I am inclined to say that you're probably going to have Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson in starting roles on this offensive line, at least to start the season. I think you could certainly benefit from leaving Michael Dieter at center and continuing to develop him as a player. He's been a player who his first season, he was a left guard. Then he redshirted. Now he's at center. You can move him back to guard? He could, but doing so effectively guarantees that he's never going to settle into a single spot at all. I'd probably leave him as the primary backup guard. Give these young guys that you gave a chance to start. I probably feel better about Liam Eichenberg starting at left guard than I do Austin Jackson at right tackle, to be completely honest with you. Liam was tested with length. He was tested with speed, and speed exacerbated his issues with length, and the pass sets really fell apart on him last year. You put him inside, his power on double teams can really shine. His athleticism as a tackle would be very effective inside at guard. You have bumpers on both sides of you that are going to protect you from the kind of spacing and reach issues that you had at offensive tackle. Whereas Austin, a lot of Austin's issues to this point, yeah, I mean, technically he's been frustrating and up and down, but he's also, from a play identification standpoint, been pretty problematic as far as seeing things in a timely manner. So that, for me, is always more scary. Maybe this is the year. Maybe year 3 is the year that it all comes together. I don't know. But I'd feel, to be completely honest with you, I feel least confident in Austin at right tackle, even though the buzz and the steam right there is pretty hot and heavy that's going to happen. That is going to do it for today's episode of Power to the Pod. I hope you guys enjoyed this exercise and trip down all of your collective thoughts. I know I certainly did as well. Make sure you keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins, your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Thanks as always for listening. Fins up. Make it a great one.